Hi, I'm Laurie Dobson. It is Wednesday, February 10th, 10 o'clock, 2021. And it is the same time that a meeting will be held on this island with the trustees of the Great Cranberry Island Historical Society. They are all meeting to discuss the fact that a film was shown last night called Absolute Proof, Mike Lindell. It's been removed from Facebook. It packs a punch, or it would just be one of those things that could be easily brushed off, but it is discussing in detail the views of a person who started the company MyPillow about what he believes happened in the election to prove that there was election fraud. And he brings up some very serious things that are worth considering, and not just brushing over or calling the movie dangerous or anything like that. I think that it's important when there is evidence to look at the evidence by an independent panel, have a review of it that's not corrupted by the, if such a thing could happen these days, to have a review of something that's not corrupted. But I think it's important that all this information comes out, and at least in the court of public opinion, with open ability, not censored, but an open ability for people to discuss it, that we could come to some different understandings about what happened at the Capitol. And I think it's important, at the election, because I think it's important. And what happened at the Capitol, I think, was a direct result from people feeling burned by the process and too furious at the feeling of disenfranchisement. Topped off by all of the protocols and things with the masks and the lockdown and the lack of economic freedom, ability to make a living, and complete helplessness on the government. I think it's all just too potent a brew, and it just boiled over at the Capitol, as we saw. I think it could have been a lot worse at the Capitol than it was. I think people were trying to make a point. I think that was the overall effort. And obviously, anytime you get a lot of people together, you're going to have some sort of conflagration. I think anytime people join together with an agenda that's a personal agenda and refuse to hear any other viewpoint, you get a one-track mind mentality. It closes your mind. And when that is combined with the piety of being newly empowered and having others of like mind, and you have media broadcasting that viewpoint incessantly, and not allowing any other viewpoints, you're going to get a situation that's unfair. Imagine in a family when say there were two children and one was favored over another to an extreme extent, or anytime, anywhere that you have differing opinions and only one side is allowed to be aired. There's no room for debate. There's no room for even considering the shadow or the blind spot that people have in their own viewpoint. They're going to get in an echo chamber, and that is a cauldron, in my view, for creating all kinds of ideas of punishment, punitive actions towards others. So I believe right at this moment there's something going on, and I think it's a very dangerous precedent that if somebody does something that others consider too far, too extreme, rather than talk to the person, rather than find ways to diffuse it in an adult and intelligent fashion, that people join together to try to punish and dismiss the voice of opposition. And in this case, it's happening on Great Cranberry Island. And because of this film being shown last night, unfortunately, the flames got fanned to a level where I think it got way out of hand. What happened was one person posted on a Facebook page, their own private page, the picture of the Great Cranberry Island Historical Society's sign outside saying "Absolute Proof, movie tonight," and then right after that it said "Stolen presidential election." Now that's an editorial comment. That is not, I think, in the best interest of the Cranberry House to put editorial comments on films, but simply to show them. Last week there was a movie called 12 Angry Men, a rather controversial movie at the time, and it really showed the power of moral persuasion It showed the power of keeping an open mind against a group that has preformed their opinions to a very strong extent. One man holding out for considering the possibility of another interpretation of an event. In this case, the murder of someone's father who was put on trial and convicted. Or excuse me, he wasn't convicted, but he was charged, and they were the jury to determine his fate. I think it's a very important film to see, and I suggested it. I'm really glad that Phil showed it. It is pretty bizarre that all these people came out of the woodwork to excoriate Phil for this terrible lapse of judgment or dangerous trend that they had to feel they had to squash and show they were not part of it in any way. It went to extremes. People were, talking about refusing to put any money at the Cranberry House and to pull back and to just, I mean, all these rabid comments. It had nothing to do with the film itself. The film itself is just one man's personal opinion made into a movie. I think the effort was to try to show anybody on these islands that if they speak up and have an opposing view from the prevailing opinion of the Democratic viewpoint about how the election happened, then you will be pushed back against. So you'd better be quiet. Phil was not quiet, and I applaud him for holding out long enough to show a movie that he thought was important to the island for its consideration. And like 9 times out of 10, every other movie that's shown in the winter has at the most 4 people there. Phil, Karen for a few minutes, and then she leaves, Bob, and myself. And we just see old movies. That's about it. Some new movies, but mostly old movies. We just go on Saturday night, have some popcorn, get out of the house, and that's the end of it. And in this case, it was on a Tuesday night, and Phil just showed a movie he wanted to show. I thought, no harm in showing a movie. I suggest 1984. I think anything that helps us look at where things are right now from a historical perspective are helpful. And this movie, I was willing to see it, and I think it's thought-provoking. I don't agree with all of it necessarily. I don't have to. It's not my position to go to a movie and form a solid opinion. The danger is in when people draw conclusions and make assumptions, as happened here, when on a private Facebook page, someone made a decision that this was a horrible thing to do, and made a comment about Phil on their page, saying that he was a bad joke. That's very personal. Another comment that was made that was very personal was on the Cranberry House information page when Karen Whitney, Phil's wife, Karen, who also helps run things at the Cranberry House, she runs a business that's there. She helps the museum. She does an incredible amount for that. She does everything. She helps do all the hostessing. She helps clean it. She helps run events. She helps the art show. You name it, that place wouldn't be where it is without Karen. Phil and Karen don't do much in the way of expecting much return, as far as I can see. They want a little bit of an influence on how things are there, and that's, I think, reasonable. Have I agreed with them? No. A lot of the time I haven't, to the point where I'm not asked to be a trustee, because I have actually commented on a movie, I believe it was The Four Feathers, and I just didn't like I felt it had some racist elements in it that I didn't think were appropriate. And another islander said, you don't have to agree. This has historical context, and it's true. Otherwise, if we didn't understand historical context, we wouldn't have a way to explain history to those now who don't understand the development of ideas, how ideas advance, partly by error as well as by positive circumstance. A lot of how do we have a revolution in this country? Because people pushed back against what they felt was intolerance, a tolerable situation. And in our Constitution, embedded in our Constitution, Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, and also in our Constitution, there's specific language about the need to push back vigorously against any form of government in our country that is unjust. And I believe at the heart of it, that's what the people at the Capitol were doing. Did they control the narrative? No. There was such a vehement pushback. There were people that were shot, and who knows, we have not had any kind of ability to look at that neutrally, because we're told at every turn that it was a devastating, horrible, deplorable, despicable, contemptuous. All the slur names were applied to it. What happened there was regrettable, but you had a lot of people trying to express to the Congress that they were unhappy with the situation. Trump should not have fanned those flames. Anytime you fan the flames of a mob, you get a mob reaction. But to begin with, 74, 75 million people voted for Trump. And I have to tell you, I did not, and I would not, but I am sympathetic to those who feel disenfranchised, because there's just too much narrative pointing the other direction. 3 years trying to prove that Trump used Russia, participated in the election that got him elected. So everything was blamed on Russia. Everything. And that was shown by Mueller, as far as he was willing to say, and did say, that it was baseless. Now, was that true? I don't know. But nobody accepted that in 3 years. Nobody accepted that, that the whole Hillary thing, and I'm not going to go there. Okay, so back to Phil, and back to Karen, back to the Cranberry House. Right now we have a situation, and talking about the Facebook page, Cranberry House information page. It was used poorly by Gary Allen to hawk his personal agendas and beliefs and ideas and his rhetoric and his personal narrative on those pages. I pointed that out, and he pushed back and said he did not have a personal agenda or personal narrative. He can only say that if he does not have the ability to look in the mirror. And I think that the problem is that he has been given too much power as an administrator to put whatever he wants to on those pages. He's used the C word. He's used women in compromised positions in pictures to make jokes about. He's used derogatory language, sexist language, derogatory language towards a woman, calling her unraveled. Yesterday, Karen Whitney, unraveled. It's not his page, but he's using it as his personal page. And I've been taken off that page because I had personal views expressed on that page that they felt were not pure information, that it was my personal point of view and considered propaganda. That's a strong word, but definitely I had a point of view I was putting across on the page. It got to where I'm not even able to just put things of general benefit to the island that I believe are beneficial if they're not considered that way by the administrators. There are 5 administrators, apparently. Any one of them can knock something down, but I see for the most part that Gary is the one at the helm, and he is able to denounce what he cannot stand and abide. I can say this, and I can show because I've kept the pages of things that he's said to me, trying to urge me to go to the newspapers and make a huge spectacle out of the effort by Caitlin Damon and the Cranberry House Rescue Service to suspend me when I was concerned in the very beginning of this pandemic a year ago that people weren't paying proper attention to it. And I called it out in a viewpoint of my own on my personal Facebook page. And he supported it. He was trying to get me for the very longest time to say something about that and to excoriate people and to put them down and to make a big, huge case out of it. Okay, I had that point of view for a long time until I kept my mind open and I started listening to others, and I realized there was more to this picture than just one point of view. And I tried to show another, and I wrote my own Facebook page video, a YouTube video on my Facebook page about the masks, questioning them in October. I was expelled from the rescue service for this. I was told that media is not something I can engage in. There was a policy written up in March about not being able to use media for our purposes. And I think that if that's the case, then certain other people who have commented on controversial subjects that are also on the rescue service, and Mary and Paul, and among others, have used the page, have used their own personal platforms for their own personal views. I don't think it's appropriate to expel somebody like myself, who is the only full-time EMT hired by the town, full status. The town paid $6,000 to get me licensed and to get me certified as an EMT so I can serve this island, and now I am unable to do that. I'm told I am expelled. That happened because of a viewpoint I expressed. So viewpoints are important. Viewpoints, even if they're on people's personal Facebook pages, have an effect. And we have to decide, are we going to allow people to have their own personal views, or are we going to censor people for what they put on their own pages? We need a media policy in these islands, because our information page, our rescue service, and even our town officials are engaging in censoring. I was told that my views, when I tried to express them to the selectmen in a 12 ideas that I suggested to them that what they could do back a year ago to get the word out, was not something they wanted people to weigh in on. And they told me that if I didn't like it, I could get a lawyer. So these things are having an effect. The national dilemma has come to the Cranberry Isles in a personal way. I suggest that we come up with some fair policies, and I would start by suggesting that the trustees who are now meeting, hopefully they will come to some conclusions that are beneficial. I think Phil probably should say that he editorialized on the information board, the sign outside, and he should say that he should have just probably put the name of the film, but he had every right, because he runs the movies, he had every right to show a movie, as controversial as it is. And if anyone has a problem with it, why don't they suggest another movie next Tuesday? We can call it Radical Tuesday. We could call it Free Speech Tuesday. But to suggest that it has no place in our discourse is to invalidate the entire bulk of this country that differs from this prevailing viewpoint that only people in the echo chamber can think it's not there. Others can understand that there are definitely different sides of these disputes, and they need to be respected. They need to be understood, whether we agree with them or not. But that's the foundation of our country, is the willingness to tolerate opposing views. It is what people have died for in our wars, for free speech. It is understood that it's not just for those you agree with, it's for those whose viewpoints you despise, perhaps. And if there's a violation of the law is there. The law is there to correct that. That is why we have a justice system. But in the court of public opinion, there should be no censoring, unless there's actual body harm that's threatened. That is fomenting. It's beyond fomenting. That's actually threatening somebody with harm. And if that is the case, that should stop. That should be stopped. And if anybody hurts anybody, that should be stopped. There should have been adequate defense around the Capitol in the first place. There was plenty of notice about that. There was a stand down of the National Guard by D.C. Mayor. Inexcusable. We need to have the ability to protest safely. And that was not a safe situation. And the fault lies with the Capitol itself. The people there should have known better. They shouldn't have invited it and encouraged it so that they could slam it later to an extreme degree and do it in such a manner that it has created a worsened situation. This is an example of poor sportsmanship gone to extremes. When you win, you should have the good graces to try to help others who feel that your win was ill-begotten, and to do all you can to help make it reconciled. And so I think tolerance and patience and an ability to go the distance and to listen to other viewpoints is required here. So I thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.